Hey there, this is Brian Briscoe, and I'm the host of the Diary of an Apartment Investor podcast, where we help aspiring apartment investors become experienced apartment investors. Now, today's episode comes from a text I got last week from a partner and friend about how to do better on LinkedIn specifically. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And because I like to keep these solo episodes somewhat brief, I'm going to have to break this up into 3 different episodes. All right. So what we're going to talk about today is basically the setup, all right? What you should do before you really start a marketing campaign, okay? Now, am I telling you to not post on LinkedIn or to not post on social media? No, I am not, okay? What I would recommend is you continue to do what you're doing on the social media platforms while you go through this process. And if you're ready to begin, just start posting. Posting anything in most cases is better than posting nothing. But once again, go through this process to refine, and you're going to be doing a lot better as a result. So incidentally, this is the exact same thing I teach to my coaching students. And, one of them recently raised $500,000 for a deal and has now gotten, I think, $250,000 committed for her second deal and looking to partner with somebody else on another one already. So I'm just going to launch right into it. What to do before you start. Okay, here it is. I've got, let's see, look, my notes, 6 steps for you today. Okay, step number 1. Okay, define your purpose for posting on social media. All right, sounds really simple, but you wouldn't believe how many people just start posting on LinkedIn without really having a purpose. It's just kind of like wandering aimlessly. All right, but since we're mostly aspiring apartment investors in this room or listening to this podcast, I'm going to say, part of your purpose up front is going to be along the lines of rebranding yourself as an apartment investor as opposed to whatever it is that you currently do for a living. Because that's really how a lot of people identify themselves here, especially in the U.S. in our culture, is by what they do for a living. So you want to start getting people to look at you as an apartment investor. That's a big part of the purpose starting out. All right. Now, more than just rebranding, you should have a specific desired result from the people to whom you're marketing. Okay. For example, you're going to have to use a much different approach if you're looking to purchase small multifamily properties from owner-operators than you would if you're trying to raise money for a syndication. Okay, so number 1, determine what your purpose is. Okay, let's roll right into number 2. Number 2, define your avatar or your ideal customer, ideal investor, whatever you want to call it. All right, who is it exactly that you are trying to reach? What is your target? Okay, and this is now we're aiming in on something very specific. When you start looking at who it is you want to reach, number 1, they must be able to help you achieve your purpose. All right. Number 2, when you look at your avatar, there must be enough people that are close to your avatar that you can find actual people. All right. You can't have like such a very specific avatar that you're looking for a unicorn or a needle in a haystack. All right. But you have to have a narrow enough avatar to get noticed, but enough people in that group of people where you can actually find investors or find, whatever it is you're looking for. So if you're new to marketing or multifamily, when you're coming up with this avatar, I would suggest you start with low-hanging fruit, meaning, groups that are easy to market to. And I would suggest groups that you belong to or that you're already familiar with. Okay. Don't immediately go out of the gate trying to appeal to family offices and try to get that $5 million check. Okay. Unless you already have relationships with those family offices, as a new investor, you're not likely going to get that. So start with the low hanging fruit and gradually walk yourself up the ladder. Now, with all the above in mind, you should be very specific when developing your avatar. All right, I'm going to give you a bad example first, and then I'm going to give you a good example second. Okay, bad example, 30 to 45-year-olds, accredited investors living in the United States. Why is that a bad example? It's too broad. Okay, 35 to 45-year-olds in the United States. I actually looked this up. There's about 15 million of them. Okay, so you're speaking to 15 million people, but it's not a specific enough group where you can actually speak to them individually, which is what you want to do. Now, there's 15 or so thousand people in the 35 to 45-year-old range. And now how many of those are accredited investors? You're probably now talking about 2 million, on average 10% of the US population, but blah, 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 who cares? All right, here is a better avatar, more specific, but still broad enough where you can actually get traction. How about this? 43-year-old man living in Salt Lake City and working in the tech sales industry. Makes about $300,000 per year, mostly from commissions, is looking to transition to more of a management position soon. Married for 18 years with 3 kids, one in elementary school, one in middle school, one in high school. All right, there you go. All right, that is a very specific avatar, but there's actually a lot of people that are close to that description in the Salt Lake area. Okay, there's a big tech scene in Salt Lake, a lot of tech sales. All right, there's a lot of 40-year-old men in that industry, in that tech sales. So we talk about being very specific, but how many people identify with that? The answer is quite a few. All right. And I specifically selected $300,000 per year. That is not abnormal for a salary for a 40-year-old successful tech salesman. Okay. Now, off script a little bit. Okay. Now, your avatar might be tech sales, but is that going to stop somebody who is in a very similar phase of life that is in, for example, medical device sales from looking at your content and saying, yes, I want whatever he's advertising? So you focus it down, you narrow it down, you can speak to this person, but once again, it's focused enough where you can speak directly to him, but it's broad enough where there's plenty of fish in the pond. Number 3. This is maybe the easier one. And, when I started out saying I'm going to tell you how to do stuff on LinkedIn, well, with this avatar in mind, determine the best social media network to reach your ideal customer. All right. So in this case, guess what? That person is mostly on LinkedIn. They're in B2B sales, and those people in droves are on LinkedIn. And 40-year-old males are not typically hanging out on Facebook. All right. Now, the next thing is, and this is number 4 if you're keeping track, figure out the message your avatar needs to hear. All right. An often quoted marketing phrase is you want to enter the conversation that they are already having in their mind. Now, just realize, what does your product help people with? If you're looking at apartment investing, your product's going to help people financially. So we are going to ignore anything about fitness. I think health, wealth, and relationships are the 3 things that sell the most. We're looking at more at wealth than anything else. Okay. So for now, ignore the fact that your 43-year-old, man with 3 kids has a dad bod and is trying to improve. So we're going to look at the things pertaining to wealth that keeps them up at night, that causes stress. All right. And we are going to try to tailor our marketing to help them solve those problems. Okay. Now, obviously, your product has to be a good fit, but we're talking about apartment investing, so we can make that work. Now, for example, look at the conversation this 43-year-old high-paid tech sales guy in his 40s may have. Probably started in the tech sales industry and just started investing surplus funds in, a 401k account. Okay. Once they started getting to the point to where they were maxing the 401k account and they're making a little bit more money, they probably went down to the local brokerage because that's what everybody's told to do. Index funds, dollar cost averaging. All right. So right now, where is this 43-year-old, man, 3 kids? They're probably starting to think about diversification. All my money is in the stock market. How do I diversify? Where do I diversify? Okay. Number 2, they're also probably starting to think about how long that nest egg is going to last and how long they're going to have to keep working to never have to work again. All right. I talked with a good friend recently who is more or less in this position. He's my age. I'm 40 something. So we'll call, 40 something year old male here. And he was in a similar position where, he's got a significant net worth compared to most of the population. But what's happened to him is his lifestyle has creeped up to the point to where his significant net worth is not going to cover his lifestyle for very long, meaning he has to keep working. Okay. So figure out, once again, number 4, figure out the message your avatar needs to hear, and go back to that marketing quote, enter the conversation that your avatar is already having in their mind. Number 5. This is where you do a little bit of research, okay? go follow people on the social media platform that you selected. And once again, we're talking about LinkedIn here, but this works for anything else, and start looking to see what they're doing. Now, how to find a person who's talking to your avatar? Well, a lot of people put it in their social media profile, and eventually you should too. So look for things like helping tech sales professionals in the Salt Lake City area invest in apartments. All right. A lot of people will put that in their profile description because, it's going to speak directly to the people they're trying to reach. So it's really easy to find people who are talking to this avatar. Now follow them. Start keeping track of what they do that seems to work and what doesn't. Now, likes and comments are usually the easiest metric to track, but they're not the best. But unfortunately on LinkedIn, that's really all you got to work with is likes and comments. Now you could dial down a little bit more specifically and look for what people are commenting about. So for example, I would put a lot more weight into somebody who says in the comments, "Hey Brian, I would like to see your next investment opportunity." Okay, that's a direct hit. All right. Somebody who says, "Hey, this is great advice for anybody." Okay, they're commenting, which means the post is doing okay from an algorithm perspective, but it may not be hitting the mark. All right. So that was off script. Let's get back on script. Things to look at, what are they saying? Are they speaking directly to their avatar? Are they talking about these pain points? Are they giving them solutions to get out of these pain points, right? That's what you're looking for, is how other people do it. Now, one other thing you want to look for is calls to action. What types of calls to action? Are they telling their followers to book a call? Are they telling their followers to go to their website? So look at their calls to action, because when we get into the next episode where we talk about, how to assemble a really, really solid LinkedIn post, we want to put calls to action in them. All right. We don't want people just to consume our content. We want people to reach out to us and say, "Hey, Brian, I want to invest." Now, if you're trying to raise money on apartments on LinkedIn and you haven't followed me yet, go ahead and give me a follow. That's one of my 2 avatars. All right. The 2 avatars I have, number 1 is very similar to the one that I just told you about. It's the sales guys, the high paid sales executives in Salt Lake City. All right. That's kind of my avatar, right? The other avatar I have is based around, it's a little bit younger, but it's a similar group of people who are burned out on their job and they're looking to escape the rat race, escape corporate life, and have more control. So those are the 2 avatars that I have. And you can look at my posts and you can say, okay, he's speaking to that avatar A, he's speaking to avatar B. Now, number 6 and the last one today, using all of the above, what your purpose is, what your avatar is, the message that they need to hear, your little bit of research, brainstorm a bunch of topics that would and should appeal to your avatar. Okay, that's it. Brainstorm, write as many down as possible. And when I brainstorm and when you brainstorm, I recommend that you don't put any filters on. If it comes to your mind, write it down. Okay, simple as that. Now, the second part of step 6 is once you got a pretty decent list, and you probably should shoot for 30 topics or more, highlight the best ones. All right. Go through and think about which ones are most relevant, most pertinent to this particular avatar, and highlight those. Okay. That's going to be the basis of your social media campaign from here on out. Okay. Now, this is something that you should probably do on a regular basis just to make sure that, review this list or add other things to the list, make sure that you're keeping track of the things that are important and keep on going back to this list and figure out the best way to do it. Right. So now, once again, I do like to keep these episodes brief. We're already, 15 minutes already, so a little less brief than I wanted to. But next week, we're going to talk about how to create a post that gets attention. And then the following week, we're going to talk about what to do when people start responding. Okay. Once again, since we are talking about LinkedIn marketing, now's a great time for me to remind you, go ahead and connect with me on LinkedIn. If you have any questions about what I talked about today, look for my post that corresponds to today's episode and drop your question in the comments. All right. And with all that said and done, last thing is don't wait to invest in real estate. Invest in real estate and wait.